Welcome, 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 everyone. Welcome to BIPOC Executive Search Inc. live series. This is our third live series, and if you're keeping track of us, you know this is number 3. Today's topic is Executive Search 101, everything that you need to know about how an executive search firm works. I am your host, Stacey Buchanan. I am a principal at BIPOC Executive Search, and I am joined by my incredible teammates, Urmila Khan, a partner, Melissa Somnat, engaging manager and consultant, Helen McConan, partner, and the Jason Murray, president and managing partner. Before we start today's session, I want to take a moment and humbly acknowledge the land we're meeting on. The land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Now, I want to say, personally, when I start to acknowledge the land, I get a little nervous, and it's very important for me to definitely acknowledge the land that we are on. So please forgive me if my words are, if the lands are misjumbled, but from my heart, I really do acknowledge where we stand on. Before we start today's session, as you know, for the last 2 sessions that you've been on, you know that when you come to our sessions, you're going to learn today. So I'm going to ask you, if you're old-fashioned like me, please get your notepads ready and a pen. Or, you can pull out your phone, your laptop, your notepad, whatever it is. But please take notes, okay? So we are going to begin. We've got 6 questions today, and our panelists are here, and we're going to tell you everything that you need to know about how an executive search firm runs, how we operate. So, team, are you ready? Okay. All right. So number 1 is, what is an executive search firm relative to other recruitment firms? I'm going to push this over to you, Helen.
Thank you, Stacey Ann, and welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here again and talk about us essentially in our industry. So an executive search firm, by definition, is an organization that helps other organizations recruit highly qualified individuals to complement their leadership team and their executive leadership teams. Typically, many firms are industry specific and focus on specific industries, but primarily the work is done across various sectors, whether it's the public sector, the private sector, as well as non-for-profit organizations. And some of the titles in terms of what senior level or executive levels mean, I guess, in terms of the definition of executive search, it is vice president, president, senior directors, CEOs, and the various C-suites, as well as board of director searches would be included in that. And then there would also be some highly skilled as well as skilled or specialized positions. One of the differentiating pieces, after I gave you my definition, is that the relationships are long-standing, both on the client side as well as the candidate side. So these are friends. You get to know a lot about individuals through our conversations and through our work, and so that would be one of the primary differentiators that I would call out. And then, as any other industry, there is an association that many executive search firms pertain to or are a part of, and the Association for Executive Search Consultants is the one group that sets our standards in terms of ethics and quality of work. So I would pause there.
Thank you, Helen. Jason, do you have anything to add to that?
Certainly, and thank you so much, Helen, for everything that you shared. There's different types of recruiters and then different types of organizations that recruiters might be in. So you have some recruiters that are in-house. So these are people that are actually working inside of an organization. generally found within the HR department working on talent acquisition. And then you'll have third parties, such as ours, which is an executive search firm, which does much of the same work. But when you think about some of the roles that Helen just named off, whether it's vice presidents, presidents, et cetera, sometimes the HR department just doesn't sit high enough in the organization to actually be facilitating those searches and needs a bit more objectivity and maybe an outside voice, which is why a third party like an executive search firm would be retained. But there's also other types of firms. So you have outplacement firms, you have staffing agencies, you have organizations that are focusing on middle level management recruitment, on entry level management, administrative, clerical. You have some firms that actually specialize. So there might be some firms that actually focus on marketing. So it's really important for people to have context in terms of what a firm like ours is relative to others. Another important thing to know about a firm like ours is there's a difference between contingency firms and retained firms. So contingency firms are firms that actually get paid when a candidate is actually found and hired. So what that means is a client organization can go to 5 contingency firms all at the same time and say, duke it out. Whichever one of you can actually have the last candidate standing is the one that's going to actually be paid. Contingency firms obviously have their purpose and have their place. But going back to what Helen made a comment about in terms of the relational piece, we're a retained firm, which means that we have an exclusive mandate where a client says it is only you and you alone that's going to be looking out for us and trying to help us find someone as the broker between the candidates and us, the client. And so what that means is we are able to be more relational. We are able to actually think about their organization in a more robust fashion and also have very robust and confidential conversations with candidates, building that trust to then help bring them into organizations. So those are a couple of the things that I would add to Helen's really wonderful comments.
Thank you, Jason. We're going to go over to question 2. Question 2 goes like this. Besides executive search, what other areas of expertise that BIPOC Executive Search Inc. specializes in to support your clients? Urmila, can I have you answer that one, please?
Absolutely, Stacey Ann. Thank you so much. And thank you to my colleagues as well. Stacey Ann, I believe Melissa wanted to start this one. So I'll turn it over to Melissa, if that's all right.
Sure, Melissa, go right ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Stacey Ann and Urmila and the rest of the team here. It's such an honor to be a part of this group. You know, when I'm thinking about what else we specialize in, it's really about helping organizations develop and further grow healthy organizational ecosystems overall when we're talking about talent advisement overall or organizational development. And there's a few ways where we're able to support organizations. We do have an organizational equity, diversity, and inclusion audit. And this is really about taking a big picture to the organization where a company wishes to develop equity, diversity, and inclusion further that, you know, helps to generate clarity on where they can allocate resources. So that's one of the ways that we help support. Cultural transformation support, for sure. You know, we are in a time of transformation, and we can help organizations as they're looking to implement those equity, diversity, and inclusion strategies across, you know, different departments as well. Another piece that we're very, very good at is human resources, equity, diversity, and inclusion support. So this is really about partnership. This is about, you know, partnering with the foundation of an organization, which is human resources. It's about the people. And so that could look like talent counsel or advisement. It can look like, you know, being in on behavioral interviewing. And really, it's just about that partnership between, you know, how equity, diversity, and inclusion imbues into human resources. We also support in succession management. So this is really, I think, quite special when you're thinking about, you know, supporting folks within the BIPOC community towards these executive positions. We're able to help with leadership coaching and training. Urmila, I'll put it over to you for the rest of this particular question, if that's okay.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Melissa. And Stacey Ann, again, to Melissa's point, executive search and life really is about how we look at everything holistically, right? So Melissa's mentioned some key factors that we look at that we can help integrate within the entire organization. You know, it's one thing to have a search firm like ours come in and work on a search, and which we will find an amazing individual to fit into your team, your culture, the organization. organization, how is that individual relating to others? And more importantly, how are others within that hiring company relating to individuals, right? So there's different tiers of training that, thankfully, Jason and the rest of the team, I think we're all together on this. We're not just here to do a transaction of a fill. So to that end, when we speak to CEOs, VPs, directors, board members, what does the executive team makeup look like? And, is there cultural sensitivity training perhaps that needs to occur there? So everyone's involved holistically, right? It's an awareness and an understanding beyond what HR is strategically doing or trying to accomplish. In addition to the cultural sensitivity training at the executive level, unconscious bias training for the individuals that are going to be interacting with your new employee or others who are already existing, right? I did my unconscious bias training and I will admit 1 or 2 questions and said, how did I not know the right answer for that, right? And we are in this business. So I think it's just owning that we all come with preconceived notions based on where we come from, our education, our makeup, our interactions, and these can really seep in to our everyday matters. So being aware of that, right? And looking at those checks and balances and how that may creep in, not just into the hiring process, but how is this impacting your organization and how is it perceived? It's one thing to have our firm represent, but what are you doing on your end and how can we help you get there? In addition to the unconscious bias trainings, then there's several workshops and presentations, I think, that Jason and the team, we've really looked at fine-tuning those and what does that look like? Is it the difference between included and the word inclusion? Is it about looking at how millennials view EDI, as opposed to different genders and different sectors? How do we disrupt the hiring process in a very positive way to increase representation? So what else do executive search firms do? We just help you look at your entire organization in terms of ESG, I would say, environmental social governance. I see people governance maybe, right? If that makes sense.
Can I also just say, we love to share here. I love how Irma's like, let me have you, Melissa, start this question. Melissa's like, I think you should continue from here.
I did discuss it before and she wanted to open it, so I wanted to honor her with that.
Stacey, and we're going to keep you on your toes too, so don't think it's just one way.
I love this. I love this. And definitely want to echo what Irma said. We do the sensitivity training as well. We do the training. So it's not like we're just pushing it out there and saying, hey, this is what we have to offer. We do it as well. So we are a team. We work together as a team, and whatever we're giving our clients, trust me, we are all under that too. We're all doing it too. I'm going to go to number 3. And number 3 goes like this. When do organizations typically hire a search firm? Now, this one is for Irma and Melissa as well. Who wants to take this first?
I'm happy to jump in on this one as well.
Go ahead. When do they typically hire?
Yeah, I think it's a few reasons, right? I think it has to do with complementing, when a profile for an executive search is nuanced, it can be strenuous on the existing in-house HR team. As Jason had pointed out, we're here to support that in those nuances and complexities with these executive type of roles. I think part of it is also a different entry point into high quality, high caliber, diverse candidates who are motivated for this executive role. And we're able to tap into that community based on our bench strength here. Another thing that comes up for me is really that objectivity. So that, Jason had mentioned around third party, that outside perspective that can really provide, different pieces that can be drawn out as it relates to an executive role. Irma, I'll throw that over to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, search to me, it's a business critical decision, right? It's what is the value that a firm like ours or other search firms is bringing to your organization, and what is the value that the candidate is bringing, and what is the cost of not having that candidate there, and what is the cost of not having someone like our firm or any other firms who know how to go about that process effectively from beginning to end to do this work, right? We look at how do we evaluate business in terms of money, time, and sanity sometimes, right? So if we can save the organization time in being able to achieve their goals and money in the process, because it's how is this person impacting the business in not just the short term and not just the optics, but the long term? What else are they bringing? That's to me one of the critical points of looking at a search firm. So it's incredibly important. Sometimes you're looking for a rare candidate, right? And you may tend to go to your networks and default to whom you know, but there's so many other avenues that networks that we are tapped into that are in our researchers, that our entire process is really just so fine-tuned that we're able to tap into all of those and bring you a wealth and a depth of individuals who are key. Sometimes it's a new position that you want to create and you're not sure how to go about doing that. So, you reach out and is it a matter of assisting with creating a job description or a position profile or a function, and how does that relate? Helen, you'll know oftentimes, roles have sort of shifted as we've already gone to market, because we bring back information that is maybe relevant to the organization, perhaps not relevant to what's going on in the market today. And so the title shifts, the function sometimes shifts, and it's being able to have that flexibility and fluidity with an organization that can guide you through that process. I mean, there's so many others. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in. I should probably pause now.
That's amazing. I think you covered a lot of that. Jason or Helen, did you want to add anything to that?
I think Urmila covered a lot of pieces that are important to think about, or for an organization to think about ahead of time. Sometimes search can be viewed as reactionary, and organizations really need to be proactive and really own that organizational development, that organizational structure, but not only for today, but really planning for the future, and looking at that short, and medium, and long-term goals, and does the role even align? No, not does it even align, but does it align with the strategy, and how does it align with the strategy? And more so now, many organizations are, and I'm going back to what you mentioned, Urmila, the ESG aspect. Mm-hmm. Every leader's responsibility is around sustainability, and it's social sustainability, it's environmental sustainability, it's governance sustainability. We as leaders have a responsibility, not only for the organizations and our immediate professional networks, but overall the globe. We gotta be global citizens.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If I can just add in really quickly to Helen's point, the succession planning, right, is what Helen's referring to. That succession planning. So how are the individuals in your organization right now being groomed? The ones who are there, based on some of the trainings that we may provide, but also, again, that holistic approach from a diversity aspect. I don't think we've said diversity yet in the conversation. I'm not sure if we have, but it's not something that I would say we specialize in. It's who we are, right? And so that diversity that we bring, your firm or your company working with an organization that is represented, the people who are communicating with your potential candidates understand what they're going through, right? In addition to that, we bring our experience in the different sectors, but what makes us different, I think, is that understanding, and also that love and passion and the gratitude to be able to help to connect those dots and transform lives. So, I think, Jason, we always say it's not transactional, right? It's transformational. And so we're here to bring that diversity, yes, from an ESG percentage achievable objective standpoint, but also, why does that even need to exist? If we weren't really already doing it to begin with, we need to be doing it now, but let's not look at it as a number only, right? It's who we are. So let's just embrace and empower everyone.
Yes, Urmila. Yes. See what I got from that, what Urmila just said, what I love. It's like, it's not what we specialize in, it's who we are. BIPOC Executive Search Inc., right? We are going to go into question number 4. And that is, when a candidate is placed, are there any conflicts of interest or off-limits policies to be aware of? Jason, would you like to take this one, please?
Sure. So just in terms of nomenclature, when we use the terminology placed, essentially what we mean is someone is the candidate that has been given an offer and has accepted the job. So this is actually a really important question for candidates to be aware of the answer to. So maybe I'll focus on the off limits policies, and then I'll have my colleague Helen talk maybe about conflict of interest. So with respect to the off limits policies, when we actually do enter into a contract with an organization, essentially we do share with them that we are not going to be approaching the candidate that ends up being placed or ends up getting the job for a 5-year period. Why? Because it is an investment to retain a third-party firm. So why would we want to say, we've helped you find this amazing candidate, and a year later, we're approaching them to ask them if they want to move to another position? So essentially, people really do have to be aware that while we love all the relationships that we form, if someone ends up being that last candidate that ends up in the job, we effectively are not going to be, ringing your phone up every week to see if you want another position. Now, having said that, what clients need to know is that we can't control what a candidate does. So, for example, we're one search firm out of many. There can be a candidate that's in the job for 2 years out of the first 5, let's say, that might start to enter into all sorts of conversations. So it's really important on the client side to really always have that conversation around retention, which we know is really, really, really important. But on that same subject, if a candidate were to see a position that we are working on and got in touch with us, we can't say, oh, you have to get off the phone right now. We can't speak to you because we just worked with the client organization to help you get landed there. People have agency. People are free to do what they are going to do. And so that's something that I would just want to make sure clients keep in mind where candidates are concerned, and candidates keep in mind that we are retained by the client. So we are effectively partnering with them and sustaining relationships with you, which means we wouldn't be proactively trying to poach you within 5 years.
Thank you, Jason. Helen?
Thank you, Jason, for that. I think in the context of conflict of interest, yes, there's definitely there are definitely pieces that individuals and organizations need to think about. If I think about specific industries that have perhaps even grown together, organizations that have grown together and evolved as in their kind of ecosystem of the industry that they're a part of, there are handshakes. There are, I want to say the word agreements, where they say, well, we're not going to take your people. And you'll say, okay, well, we're not going to take your people. And then everybody goes along their merry way. So that's the first thing that comes to mind in terms of that handshake or specific conflicts, where there have been times where, whether it's on the contingency side or on the retained side, where companies would say, can you please stop taking all of my people? And then you have to honor that. You have to honor that request as well, from that front. And then the last thing that I would add is when you're an executive and you're perhaps contemplating or already embarking in your journey in becoming a board of directors, there are conflicts there as well, where your current organization may say, that particular nonprofit organization or that particular, whether it's a volunteer board or a paid board, there will be conflicts in the discussions that you'll have in board meetings versus your day job. So that's something else that candidates should think about, that organizations think about and operate on a regular basis.
Thank you so much, Helen and Jason. We are going to go into question number 5. And this one goes, before getting into discussions with potential candidates, what are the first few things that a recruiter does for the recruitment process? Melissa, I'm going to get you to start off with this, please.
Thank you, Stacey Ann. You know, this is part of where my coaching hat comes on, because it really is around getting to know clients' needs. When we're talking with the executive team, it's really around understanding, you know, what are those elements that, you know, will have a candidate hit the ground running. You know, we're talking about team fit. We want to ensure that this process is as smooth as possible. And then in turn, we can then, you know, share overall context with the candidate so that they're better prepared for the roles as well. So that's what I would add. You know, it's pieces of being able to understand how a candidate's going to be successful in the role.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Urmila?
Was that supposed to be mine, Stacey Ann?
Yeah.
I'm rolling with this.
Yes. No, this is number 5.
So the question, yeah, we're live. So the question again is what
Sure.
does this
Before getting into discussions with potential candidates, what are the first few things that a recruiter does for the recruitment process?
Mm-hmm. So to Melissa's point, we're taking this contextual approach, and like Helen said, the candidate needs to be aware of you know, potential conflicts. What it really just comes down to is how do you fit into this bigger picture, right? So when we are looking at individuals, it's not simply where are they right now, or are they doing this job immediately? It's where are they, where have they been, where would they like to go? Really getting to know the individuals. So, you know, in terms of the search process, it's identifying industries or groups or like-minded individuals where they may be connecting. You know, it's looking at things geographically. Jason always talks about buckets. So, you know, there are different buckets that we look at in terms of where we're going to find individuals. But really, it's that holistical approach of like Melissa said, the needs of the client, and how do we really integrate that so it's a long-term success. Jason, did you want to add anything?
Stacey Ann, I think Urmila wants to be the host for the next live series. Yeah, let's switch it up. Urmila's going to host. Stacey Ann, you're going to be on the panel. Yeah.
We got it.
So yes, there are some things that I can add, and maybe I'll focus on answering the question a bit more in terms of the steps. So, you know, I would say on the critical path overall, you know, there are a few weeks in the middle where we're really doing our work in the marketplace, having conversations with candidates and seeing if people would explore and entertain a new possibility for themselves. But in the front end of the process, you know, and this brings up some of what Urmila and what Melissa brought up, is really context setting and just making sure that there's a strong foundation so that we can actually arrive at a successful conclusion. So that's everything from consultations. So who within the organization do we need to have a conversation with so we can better understand what the climate is like and what the needs are for the role and what success is going to look like. Then we start to use what we heard in any existing job profile or advertisement to craft an advertisement that will go in the public domain if it's the type of role that will actually be advertised in that way. But more importantly, to make sure that we really craft a nicely put together position profile so that when candidates are reading that document, they can walk away with a really strong sense of everything that we learned leading up to that document being finalized. And then from there is, again, when we start getting into conversations with candidates. So there's probably about, 2 weeks of foundation setting, which are consultations, drafting the ad, drafting the position profile, and also from our work internally, mapping out the research that needs to go into finding where all you wonderful candidates are before we start to get you on the phone.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Helen?
Yeah, I mean, I would add to the kind of the step approach that Jason was just mentioning. I think on my desk or at my desk, I just organize my thoughts about everything. the organization, the industry, any news, the role, any trends that are happening as well within that particular space. And then I also start to think about and prepare questions. I'm a little old school like that, and I will still have my list of questions. But also start thinking about, and as I'm jotting the questions down, thinking about and anticipating the questions that the candidates may ask in that conversation. And then the fun part begins. I prepare to be inspired by what I hear. Those are my 3 steps.
I love that. Prepare to be inspired by what I hear. I think this is our first live where we are moving ahead so fast, but that's okay. That's okay because we've got some questions, but we're going to go into question number 6. And this is the last question. And I think this is a question that everybody wants to know. And that is, how do search firms find candidates? And I'm going to throw this over to the lady wearing emerald green.
My questions you've thrown over to me.
But before you answer, Irmela, we're not here to give everyone our secrets now, okay? We're not here to give you the secrets.
Nothing to say.
We'll put together the book for everybody in about 2 years. How's that?
How do we find candidates, right, Stacey?
Yes.
You know what it is?
Yes.
So the key thing that comes to me is really relationship building, right? All the steps and all the tactics and all the groups and all of the events that we look at, it really doesn't mean anything if we're not open and vulnerable ourselves to go and learn. Like Helen says, prepare to be inspired. That is so true. It's like, who are you and what is your story and how are you aligned and where are you today in your career? Where are you today in life? How does that connect to the mission, the vision of the organizations that we're working with? The candidate may not, obviously, a lot of times we're sourcing, right? So they may not even be aware of what this mission and vision is of these organizations that we're going to gift to each other on both sides. Sometimes they're unaware. So it's just being able to connect those dots through a lot of listening. I guess I've sort of shared where we go to search, but when you connect with people and they feel who you are and where you're coming from, that authenticity comes through. I can't tell you the amount of people I've spoken to prior to coming to BIPOC Executive Search, and I'm going to do a little plug here. When I found this website, I was like, what is this? This exists. I'm able to sort of marry my personal, my professional, my spiritual, all of these in one, and not doing recruitment on the corporate side, which I love, and on the agency side, which I love, and on the not-for-profit side, but being able to do all of that together and really feel that sense of fulfillment. You can't buy that. You can't buy that in a search firm, right? And I think every one of us comes with our own story. Jason, Helen, Melissa, Stacey Ann, Shirley, Candace, I can go and call all the names, Lori, Zoe, Chad, anyone else? Am I missing anyone?
Stephanie, Erica.
Sorry, Steph. Steph knows I love her. But this sense of exuberance, I think, that we feel, and also humility when we connect as a team, and when we speak to our candidates, I feel is what is really essential to how we find people. Right. And then once you connect with people on that level, there's so many referrals that come in, whether on the client side or the candidate side, simply because you're being you and you're being real. So I don't know if I really answered that question in terms of the tangibles, but I think
you did.
Wait for the book, I suppose, that Jason Murray will be writing.
That we are all writing.
All right.
Yeah.
The Irmela chapter is going to be the first chapter.
No.
Melissa, I'm gonna have you piggyback off of this, or you add your points to this, Melissa.
So one of our colleagues, Shirley, ends her emails with "in community," which I absolutely love. And I find that, I think that that's everything, right? I think it's a commitment that we all have to the community. It's a commitment around nurturing our networks. It's, I love this piece that Irmela brought up around authenticity, right? It is part of it is being in a place where I'm feeling fully integrated, that I can show up as my whole self. And that then shows up in conversations with people, right? So I think that's where I would add to that.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's
My
so
pleasure.
true. Helen, what can you add to that, please?
Well, not much more. I think both Irma and Melissa made some really strong and really impactful points. I think what I would, the only piece that I would add is just the purpose. And the work that we do is quite intentional. And so every single step, networking, intentional, connecting, intentional, talking about a candidate, intentional. Talking to a client, intentional. Every single step, and so that that is how we continue to build the community, and how we continue to build the relationships, and how do we continue to even personally, I'm going to point to myself. I feel fulfilled in the work because of all the pieces that Irma just shared, Melissa, what Jason's going to have to say, I'm sure, and just being a part of an organization that really understands the purpose and the intent of the work that you're doing, and the purpose and the intent of what you're impacting in your network and in society really as a whole.
Thank you, Helen. Intentional. I love that. Jason?
Yeah, thanks so much, colleagues, for this really wonderful conversation. When opening up BIPOC Executive Search, I said part of the problem with search in general is the fact that we are so preoccupied with having to find, right? Like even the question, how do you find candidates? Well, when you're doing a search, you have a finite amount of time to do it, and there is no way you're going to be able to canvass the planet to find everyone who is qualified within that time. So the objective for any organization, not even just a firm, but executive search firm, but any organization is, what are you doing to make people want to come to you, right? So when you think about, let's say, San Francisco, right? What do you think about? You think about tech, you think about startups, you think people are going to want to come there because that is the brand. When you think about New York, you think about Broadway, you think about arts and culture. It is set up in a way that gets people to want to come. And so with BIPOC Executive Search, everyone is always supposed to apply. We do have successful placements where the person is not a member of the BIPOC community, but many of our placements are members of the BIPOC community because it is an environment that gets people to want to come, right? So how do we find candidates? Of course, we take the same approaches that other search firms do. We also go even deeper in some cases because we are able to be very, very meaningful and have very, very deep conversations. Like when I say these conversations are deep, there are tears after some of the conversations that we have with candidates based on what we've learned, that they've had to navigate, that what they've experienced. But overall, it is about what are we doing to make people want to come. So apropos of what Melissa mentioned about surely sign up in community, it's really making sure that people feel like there's a place to come to. When Irma says she was on the website and she was like, oh my goodness, this exists. And the way that it's actually being presented makes me want to come there. Even when I think about all the wonderful colleagues that we have and all the wonderful colleagues we're going to continue to have, people are showing up saying, this is a place that I want to continue doing great work in because I feel like it's a place that I want to come to. So, this is really a message to organizations as well, because sometimes when we take on a file, we are actually analyzing, is this a place that people want to come to? And if it's not, part of what we're doing in our process is we're making sure that we're putting information out in a way that's starting your journey to make your brand a place that people are going to want to come to more and more and more. So it's reflected in the ad, it's reflected in the profile, it's reflected in the way we're speaking to candidates and the way you're going to eventually speak to candidates. So we're giving you educational pieces before you even start meeting with people. And it's going to be reflected in the way that you onboard people and the journey you're going to continue to take, whether it's with a firm like ours or whether what you do on the inside to make sure that you can make your overall brand that much more attractive. Because when you become a Harpo, everyone's going to want to work there. Oprah just has to put out one, she just has to say, signed, Oprah Winfrey, come work for me. And it doesn't matter what's in the profile, people are going to line up around the block. So that's really what you want to do. You want to create a brand and an organization that people are going to be proud to have on their resume, and be wanting to show up to do work, no matter how stressful it is. They want to stay where they are. That is the work that we are here to do as a firm, because when we do that, we're able to bring great candidates to you. When we're thinking about that as a firm, and when we're thinking about that when we partner with you, those two things together are going to get people to come, in addition to us actually finding people.
I love that. I love that. Thank you all so much. We are going to get into a fun question. So this is a fun question, audience, that my teammates get a little nervous about because they don't know this question at all. So here we go. So this is for me personally. I'm coming from an extensive career and background in over 15 years in the film industry. And I can see how a search firm and an organization can easily relate to a director and a director of photography. Now, I'm going to break these terms down for you. The DOP, director of photography, is responsible for the look of the film, the lighting, the color, etc. Sometimes they're known as a cinematographer. So whatever you see, the feel of the film. The director now is on the other hand, he or she is responsible for the film as a whole and direct the actors, all of that. Together, they work hand in hand. Now, when it comes to an executive search firm and an organization, when they're working with, I want to say, who is the director and who is the DOP? And in the case where you have two strong, ideal candidates, and I want to know who has the greater responsibility of saying the final yes and calling the shots, pun intended. Would that be BIPOC Executive Search, or would that be the organization? And thinking they're working as a director and a DOP. Jason, do you want to take this?
Irmela sent me a private message saying she wants to take this surprise question. So.
I can't.
Irmela,
I can't believe this, Jason.
That was a joke.
We've got the DOP.
I can take it, and Irmela and anybody else that wants to jump in.
You go first.
So, Stacey Ann, you were keeping us on our toes today. I am doing ballet all up in here. Okay.
Yes.
So yes, I would say that we are more the DOP, right? Like really making sure that things are looking good throughout, right? So we want to make sure that the candidates are well prepared, that the clients are really happy with what's going on that side. Really wanting to make sure that the process itself, I always say to people, the process is oftentimes more important than the outcome, because when a client feels that the process is tight, it gives them more confidence that they're actually prepared to make a really important decision. So that's really all in that kind of vein of really trying to make sure that things look, feel, and are very, very good. And then the director, in terms of, calling the shots, that really is always going to be with the client side. We're here to make sure that we give them information that helps them make excellent and informed decisions. But the decision rests with them all the time, because they're the one that is going to be working with whoever this individual is going to be. But love that question and the analogy, Stacey. I know when you and I were speaking about you doing work with BIPOC Executive Search, we talked about the similarity between casting,
Yes.
for programs, because in my view, I think that organizations, they are in a show in their own sense, right? Where there's different characters taking on different roles for whatever it is they're putting out into the world. And then their audience, right, is receiving whatever that product is, whatever that show is, whatever. So yeah, love the analogy with the arts.
Thank you. Irmela, do you have anything to add? I feel like we were just like, Irmela, it's that green.
Have I heard my name on this live today?
It's that green. You're coming through with the green. And
Note to self, do not wear green next live. I won't be on the next live. I feel I guess I would feel it's different depending on the client to some degree, because some clients everyone has different needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel perhaps in a more structured organization, perhaps for one or the other, and maybe an organization that depending on what we need to bring in there, and perhaps a new organization or one that's trying to figure out how they're moving, maybe we're both. I'm just trying to look at this out of the box, but then who do those two people report into? I think that's us. in that we look at the holistic view again, right? And I'm saying that in that it's a circle, and so I can see us. We're here to present everyone in their best light. All right, just
love that pun.
Yeah, allow them to be. Oh yeah, it's okay. Yeah, casting light. Yeah. So it's who you are, right? We're not going to change who you are. We're here to showcase that. Is that relative to the industry? To showcase you in all of your glory and your stardom. I'm going to do this on purpose now.
She's on a roll, Jason, Helen, and Melissa. She's on a roll today.
As we direct the photography, because we want to present the best individual for the organization and vice versa. It's the overall fit, right? Yeah. And throughout that, we direct the process, right? Team, I think we direct the process now. At the end of it, ultimately, we're here to guide. Like Jason said, we're here to guide, and it's your decision finally. But I'd like to think that we're a bit of everything to help you achieve your goals in the end. And your own goals within the organization may change depending on the role, depending on any number of factors.
Absolutely. Thank you for answering that. You guys were amazing. We have a couple questions from our audience, and I think we can definitely take one or two. The first question goes, as a candidate looking for new opportunities, how do I get in touch with search firms to learn more about the roles they're recruiting for? Who wants to take that one? It's definitely not Irmela. Helen, would you like to take that one, please?
Is it not for Irmela? No.
It's Irmela's show today. The topic should be Irmela 101. Oh,
that's funny. But thank you for the question from the audience, and it's an important one. The best thing to do is just directly knock on the door. Right? Just send a message, reach out, but do research first, based on your background and your expertise and specialization, because you want to talk to a recruitment consultant that knows your space. Right, knows your ecosystem. If you're a marketer, then you want to just do your research, find out who are the marketing search consultants out here in Toronto or wherever, if you're open to relocate, and then just send a note, reach out and have a conversation. Recruiters do get a lot of messages, so I will put that caveat in there. And so don't feel discouraged if you do have to send maybe two, but also be professional and diplomatic in even how you approach the individual. You can do a direct email and a message on LinkedIn and ask for a connection. Typically, individuals will connect and will respond, but you also need to go back to the intentional and purposeful in your message when you are reaching out.
Thank you, Helen. Does anybody else have anything else to add to that? No?
I'll just jump in real quick in terms of that intentionality and purpose. I think it's such a wonderful way to focus a message in terms of when you are, with my background in recruitment, I've gotten notes where I'm not quite sure what this person is looking for. I want to be able to connect. That intentionality and purpose is such a beautiful way to focus the conversation. I love that, Helen.
Thank you, Melissa. Our next question is, what is the first step I should take to get in touch with a recruiter when I have an opportunity? I think it kind of bounces off what we just talked about, but what is the first step?
I think Jason's being silent on purpose here.
Jason, can I bring you to the big screen?
Sure. No, I mean, happy to
Hello,
chat.
Jason is always ready. Sure.
But you're right, Stacey. And the last question and the answer that both Helen and Melissa provided touches on this. And yeah, the first step really is, think about, who the recruitment firms are that you might want to ensure that you're known to. Think about your own career and some of what your focus has been to make sure you're speaking or getting in touch with the right individual or right individuals at those firms. And like Helen said as well, be patient because we do get a lot of individuals getting in touch. And so it's important sometimes to, think about when you're going to do your follow-up and how. It's always helpful to obviously attach your resume and maybe just leave a note that just sets some context for the person on the other side of the exchange.
Thank you. And we have one last question. And it goes like this. How long does a search normally take from start to finish? Urmila, do you want to take this one? I see a little no.
No. I was just saying Stacey Ann. It varies. I would say on average at our firm, it's around 2 to 3 months. Jason, would you agree? 6 weeks to 8 weeks, depending on the needs. Jason's like, don't call my name Urmila. Depending on the organization, because it's not, again, coming back to the fact that it's not transactional, right? We're not this is a critical business decision, like I've said before. So it's not just about hiring the next person that comes across our desk. There's a lot of thought and process and engagement that goes into it. So to answer that question, in a black and white way, I would say 6 weeks to 12 weeks. It could be less, it could be more. It really is about finding that right individual to meet the organization's strategic objectives in a timely manner. Right. And if I can add to what my colleague said earlier about reaching out, when to reach out, and to Melissa's point, it's not simply, hey, here's who I am. What can you do for me? It's, have you taken the time to really understand who you are and what you want and what are your goals, and then who are those organizations that align, and how have you translated what you've the tasks to what you've accomplished in relation to the goals of the organization. So there's so much work that can be done on oneself, as we're all doing every day, in life, but also in our career, to really see where do we sit in this industry that we're in. Not recruitment, I'm saying whether you're an executive in whichever sector. Where are you in relation to what's happening in the market today? What role do you want to aspire to? What are some of the avenues or the paths that other people have taken to be where you want to be right now? Reach out and talk to them. It's great to talk to us. We're relationship building, and yeah, we're here to help and create those opportunities. But there's nothing that we're doing. Okay, let me backtrack. I was going to say there's nothing that we're doing that you can't do, but there's nothing, relationships. It's just about building those relationships. So be confident in who you are. Knock on our doors, yes, but I would say be able to come in and be confident in who you are. This is what I know I bring. These are the industries I specialize in. This is how I can bring value to the organization, not just transactionally, but in terms of connecting those dots. And sometimes we may not always be able to connect on the phone, but if something graces my desk or anyone else's, email or inbox or LinkedIn, there's going to be a difference in how we respond to, hey, what's up today? And, here is who I am, and this is why I really want to connect. And these are the organizations I want to potentially go into. Do you have relationships with those? You're making an impression, not just to make an impression, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you all today. This was always incredible, learning with my team. Always. Thank you for your time, Thank you for your expertise. The great thing about this, if you didn't grab a pen and paper or your cell phone or your Mac notebook, whatever it is, this is a replay. You can always replay this, and you can always get all the information that we've laid out here for you. We want to thank you so much for joining us today on this beautiful Wednesday here in Toronto, wherever in the world you are. We thank you, and we hope that you have an incredible rest of your day. My team, thank you. I'm honored to share space with you always. Thank you. Bye.